Welcome to Blue Monday. I'm Les Roberts and I'm joined by Dave Downey. We thought this week, seeing as we're probably all sick to death of thinking about the Luton game and the fact that tomorrow, Jan 30th, represents a year to the day since Sean Dyche was appointed Everton manager, we thought we'd have a little look into his record at Everton, what we think, how we think it's going. Obviously, at first, though, we'll look at it through the lens of Saturday's game. Dave, I know you did a lot on post-match about this, and as I said, you're probably sick and tired of talking about it, as is everyone. But we'll just go into it from that point of view. Then, looking at Sean Dyche, it was bad, wasn't it?
It was a terrible thing. Do you know, it reminded me, and I mentioned this on the post-match, it reminded me of those early years with Moyes, when obviously he put the Premier League as a priority, where we needed to stay up. You know, you look at the years when we just about stayed above Man City, and it seemed like every other year we'd have a relegation fight, but then the other ones were really good.
Yeah.
Whereas here with Dyche, it seems the equilibrium just hasn't changed back. It just hasn't. We have it's here now, isn't it? If you look at it another way, it's here every single year now. That it's what do we do to stay in the Premier League? From that point of view, I have a lot of sympathy with Dyche. I do. I have a lot of sympathy with anyone who takes over that job, because it's one hell of a job to take over. If you sort of put it into a context of what it's been like since he took over a year and a day ago. There is a lot of sympathy towards him, but I think that there's a really interesting narrative that goes along with him, because there's other managers that we've had who we've given less time than him, and I think that in people's minds means that, oh well, we have to give the next guy a really much longer chance to sort things out. With him, and look, I'm not going to sit on here as much as we were messaging each other earlier, you know, saying, "Oh, look at these stats; it's the same as various managers who we got rid of and stuff like that." I think again that word context, it's important to keep that in mind when you look at it. And yeah, going back to your question about Saturday and that FA Cup, where it was different, it looked like he was going for it. And I don't think there's any sort of. You can't deny that he was actually trying to get through to the fifth round. It's not like in previous years where we've put out like half a team. That said, he had no other choice, did he? Because we've got nobody else anyway. So he might well have been thinking that in the back of everything, because obviously the league's still, the priority, what we've got to do this season. But the way in which he set up, the way in which finally we've spoken about it at length, what you think is going to happen if you put two strikers on. It was completely useless, wasn't it? And you know never to do that again right now. So at least we found something out, I suppose, on the positive side of things. But the way in which they decided to play behind those two up front was, it was hard to watch. Playing long balls up, not even, like, I know Tarkovsky, for example, loves playing a diagonal. We didn't really have many times that happened with McNeil and Harrison on the wings. It was direct, straight down the middle, like you're playing golf.
Yeah. That was the weird thing for me. It's like if you're going to play a 4-4-2, you assume, especially if you've got two big strikers in the middle, you assume that the wingers are going to get the byline or be overlapped by the fullback, but the crosses are going to come in from the byline. And there was times where McNeil was cutting in so like sort of far across the pitch away from the touchline. It was like there was no intention of playing that way.
No.
So it was like, all right, we'll just hit, the most rudimentary football you can think of, where you hit it long and one striker flicks it on for the other striker to run onto, which again, if it works and you win, it's fine. But the fact is they were both going for the same headers. They were both going for the same ball. They weren't working together at all. And it was painful. It really was painful to watch. I think the thing that annoyed me most was the fact that he did that in the second half of the league game against Luton, and it didn't work then. And people didn't have a clue what they were doing in that game either. And as Matt said, I think on post-match, they had 10 days to prepare for this. And that was the best he could come up with. Now, that's the thing that worries me. If we sort of move away from the Luton game and onto Sean Dyche, there's been a lot made of the fact that the core is missing. And the fact that, his game plan could be a little bit one-dimensional, because your team shouldn't completely hinge on losing one player. If that player is Wayne Rooney when he was at Everton, then maybe. But if it's Abdullah Decore, as good as he's been,
Yeah.
the whole game plan shouldn't turn to shit because he's not playing. Basically, there should be contingencies for that because he's not that good a player. Although he's key to that system, you should have other options. You should have other ways of playing. And I think that's kind of what worries me a little bit. And there is a caveat to that, and the fact that I think we won. Was he out for 3 games in that 4-match winning streak?
Yeah.
Something like that. So
I think it's that start, Les, where people are saying, I think we've only lost one. Well, or we haven't. I think that's it. We've only lost one when he's been out the side or something. A really strange stat that sticks out. But yeah, I think that's spot on what you've said there in terms of, and I think it's a natural thing to say. Don't get me wrong. I can see why people are saying it because he is the bright light that we've had. One of the very few that we've had this season, probably for a while longer than that, really, if you think about it. But like you say, mate, when it's not that we're missing Messi, you know what I mean? I think you're putting all your eggs into one basket if you're persistently saying, "Oh, we're really struggling without Decore." Well, yes, while it may be true, you then have to put an impact onto Dyche not figuring something else out. I don't think, and again, I hinted on this last week. I don't think that we don't have something different to put in there that they should really be working on. I mean, going back to what we've said there about the front two, he come out and said that they've been working on it in training and it was going really well. Well, just a little bit naive for a manager like him to say that. I know it's just might just be throwing something straight back at the media and things like that, but for him to say that,
maybe they were up against Michael Keane and Ben Godfrey. That's why it was working so well in training.
Exactly, mate. As much as we laugh at it, I mean, that's from a manager's experience, there's Sean Dyche when you're trying to stay in the Premier League. That's a worrying thing that he's coming out with there, really, Les. And the predicament we find ourselves in now is, as we do most seasons, really, you're battling to get as many points as you can to stay in the league as early as you possibly can now. And again, if you take a step back and look at that league table, I keep saying it. I find myself saying it more and more. But Luton are not a bad team. Luton are not a bad team, in obviously from themselves to play against them. I think they're very underestimated by sides. You look what I know we've got to go down there as well. It's just much more concerning. But you seen what they did. The Man City just about got over them when they were playing at home. Liverpool drew down there. They're by no means a Luton. People had that sort of idea at the start of the season. Oh, the 3 sides that have came up are all crap and everyone's going to finish above them. Certainly not that. That assumption, I think, has gone out the window now, particularly from them. I think Sheffield United and Burnley probably the two that go, and people are quite comfortable to say that now. But you've got a side there, especially with the points and all that stuff which we'll be going into as that progresses through the season with commissions and all that sort of thing. But yeah, losing that one as well. You've got a couple of good players too. It's just really concerning. Firstly, it's depressing that they knocked us out of an FA Cup tie, Les.
Yeah, it is. We've been here so many times. I mean, the good thing this season we didn't go out in the 3rd round, but then it's like it prolongs the agony, and you just end up going out in the 4th round. Which again, you could look at this and go, well, it would have been City next. So do you know what I mean? We've saved ourselves 30 quid there, basically.
I was going to say there'd be the draw tonight and watch them get Maidstone at home. But the other side of it is, if it was us, what?
The draw was yesterday.
Oh, was it?
The draw was yesterday, half time against Liverpool for some reason. It was City.
We'd have got City.
Yeah. So honestly,
I apologise to our listeners not knowing facts like this that happened yesterday because I was sitting there because the game tonight, isn't there?
Yeah. Ordinarily, it would.
Yeah, it was Man United against. There's what?
Ordinarily, it would be on the Monday, wouldn't it? After the or after the last game. But no, they did it.
Les, that's how bad I am because I had to write about that game in work about Man United playing Newport, and obviously that's the last one of the 4th round. And I'm thinking, yeah, they must have done the draw tonight because that was the last one because they always do it that way. But at half time in the Liverpool game? How's that even right when you've still got another game to come in the night?
I don't know. I don't get it at all. It was weird. I don't know why they did it like that. Maybe in case Klopp carved it at half time or something. I don't know.
Did they get Maidstone as well? Did they? I bet you they did.
No, they got. Oh, it's Coventry or Chef Wed, I think they got.
Ah, well, there you go, mate. That fully explains this season for us, doesn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, but that was that anyway. So we would have got
Out of it
City anyway.
anyway. Out of it anyway, so Saturday was fine.
Yeah. I know that's kind of how I'm feeling, but it just annoys me because it's like when the FA Cup draw gets made in subsequent rounds, because I think for the next two it's a free weekend, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's just horrible when like the draw's on and you've got no part in it. I hate it. I can't stand it. But yeah, I think it did ask a lot of questions of this squad and this team, didn't it? You look at the way Beto laboured up front and then Schmidt came on and didn't do anything, and you think, well, there's 40 million quid. We're going to have to find from somewhere to pay for those two. McNeil looks done in. He looks like he's been rushed back too quickly, but the manager obviously thinks that Dobb and Danjuma aren't options. To be honest, if you're looking at that game there, for me, you leave out McNeil, you put Harrison on the left and Danjuma or Dobbin on the right, and you have a left-footed winger on the left side and a right-footed winger on the right side. But he keeps doing. This is another thing about his management, isn't it? He's doing these weird things whereby even for an FA Cup game, he's put in McNeil, who doesn't look anywhere near being fit at all, and it's like, do you know, how far is he going to persist with this before it if we lose another central midfielder, we're knackered. I suppose his options are very limited there anyway, because I think he's playing the only two that he's got. I don't know what we've got on the bench in central midfield. But it is all very worrying because the last thing you want to do is fall apart towards the end of the season. Now you could look like Luton are maybe picking up at a good time. I think they'll dip again, to be honest, because as much as they're not as bad as we thought they might be, they're not very good either. So I think they'll dip again. Probably won't get a run out of either of Sheffield United or Burnley, but we need to start picking up again. And I'm not sure how he does it. And we've got a game tomorrow night against Fulham, which should be an absolute hoot. But what do you reckon he goes with in that? It's like, is he going to go same again and just do this until it works, or what? It's just because the midfield we've got, although he's very limited in options, those two aren't good enough to play in a two. They're just not at all.
And the thing about it, I think we mentioned that, I think it was at least a week ago, maybe even longer than that when you've got 3 games in a week, you have to manage who you're going to put up front, and there's no way either of them can play all 3 and start on all 3. We're now looking at, if we're looking at a situation that we've been given the answer to, that the two of them can't play together, then you have to pick. It's got to be Dom, who plays in both of them now against Fulham and then Spurs at the weekend, which is, I don't know, given his fitness, I really worry about that lad now. Do you know what I mean? I think that we'll probably have a deep discussion about him at some point. But I just can't see where he gets better now, Les, and that's a more concerning thing. But going back to your point, what you meant there about Dyche persisting with the way what he's doing, not just with the striker thing, because he did actually change it for something that was much worse, ironically, on Saturday. Everything else you're talking about behind that front line, Harrison, even though he scored probably the worst goal I've ever seen, to be honest with you, their keeper might as well have caught him through it in the goal. Yeah, going back to that though, I just think that lad's a championship player at best, and he works so hard. But I think that shows you why a player isn't that good, when they work as much as they can and try as hard as they can, but then they're still not that very good. It's not like, do you know when you see players you think, he's talented in, but he's a lazy bastard? Him, he drives as hard as he can. I can't fault him for that. But it's the Premier League, and there's no wonder that Leeds have thrown him out on loan when he'd probably do really well for them in trying to get them back into the Premier League. McNeil, you could act about there. And I suppose if you flip the coin, you're like, well, who else can he put in? I think what you said there is a really good shout, because you've got 2 players then either side who can whip crosses in. Again, going back to Harrison, he can't cross the ball. And I think how many times did he cut inside, whipped it in, and it'd go to the goalkeeper, or look like it was going to go out of play. That's the one thing you can sort of rely on when you're playing with 2 6-foot plus strikers. You think at least give them a chance or two, or at least give them an opportunity to go and head the ball.
Just in his defence a little bit there, because I do agree with everything you say about him, by the way. I never thought about that. He works so hard and he's still a bit crap. That is quite bad. It's the fact that it is hard, as if you're playing as an inverted winger, it is hard to hit a crossing. Because if you've got to check back onto your proper, like your stronger foot and sort of bend it in towards the keeper.
You've got to beat a man first before you do that.
Whereas if you're bombing down the line, you can just as soon as you get a sight, you can just whip it across and it's curling away from the keeper. So it's easy for the strikers to attack. It's harder for the keeper. But I agree with what you said. I just think that's where it would make sense to switch them.
Yeah,
really. So that those two attackers have got more to go for.
You're not as predictable as we are. I mean, you look at this now. You're going down to Fulham, which is hard enough anyway, because the Fulham have been really good for most of the best part of the season. Silva's got them to a level that we sort of got at times when he was with us, but there's much more of consistency when you look at Fulham these days. You think about, I mean, it does drive me to think about. You've got Willian, you've got Wilson as well. You've got a side that it's going to be quite difficult to keep them out, I think, and we're obviously going to have less possession than them. But you're right there. You need to edge your bets, don't you, really, and play your percentages. I think that's the sort of situation we're in right now. It's not, for putting Shemiti on as well. He just seems like, you've won a raffle. That's what it feels to me at times when he's doing that. When, you can. What we're really looking at here, Les, is I know you get 9 subs there sitting on the bench in total. We're playing with 12, a 12-man team, 12-man squad when you look at it, really. Maybe 13, and that's if you include the Pickford and Virginia. They're probably two keepers that you can rely on effectively. To do that takes a manager to have a much more, confident opinion towards what he's got there. And when I hear him speak, it's just... I think he's a straight bat sort of manager, isn't he? When he talks to people, he's straight back. He'll give an answer that is comfortable for him to say, and nobody's really going to say, "Oh, well, we were shit there, though, Dyche." Oh no, it's straight like, "Oh, I think we played well. I think we should have scored. I think we did this, we did that." He'll say all the positives straight away, but not in such a massive positive way. I think he's quite good at that in dealing with the media. Behind closed doors, I hope it's completely different. I really hope it's different what he's doing with these. And he's got Ian Woe and Steve Stone there. And I am now, I hate to say it because it's stereotypical to what people say about me. I'm really concerned, particularly with these 3 games.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if we take more than 4. I'd be delighted if you give me 4 right now from these 3 games. You look at the City at the back end of them as well.
Do you know what as well? I'll be made up with 4 points as well. But you look beyond that. It's Palace at home.
Brighton away.
No, Palace at home after City.
Right.
So we've got to be getting 3 points from that. Then it's Brighton away. Then it's West Ham at home. Then it's United away. Then it's Liverpool at home. It's a hell of a run, that. And then that takes us into mid-March. And you're like,
then, don't you? You know by that point what you are really, really up to doing, what you've got to do towards the end and stay up. It gets to me as well that a lot of people, because myself included, as soon as we seen the start of who we were playing against in terms of the bottom 3, when they first came up, it was like, you need 25 points to stay in the Premier League. I think Luton are on their own in this. They're a bit of an island when you look at the 2 below them. Yeah. But I look at that now and I'm thinking you need a lot more than 25 points to stay above Luton, I think. And I think that defines us in a certain way, Les, that you think it's going to be difficult for us to even do that these days. Forget the 10 points, because we'd be fine now. We'd probably be safe in about 3 or 4 games. You need to win, and you take another 9 points, and then you're probably sorted by then.
But you look at those like next 6-7 games, and you think, when are we getting a point out of them? It just feels like the inevitable sort of drop towards that bottom 3 would just take a little bit longer. But we'll be thereabouts anyway.
I know we've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, given that we were meant to be celebrating his 1-year anniversary, by the way.
Already.
Do you think it's time I brought in my stats now?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's to bring in your stats. So it blew my mind the other day that it's been.
By the way, I might, if I've done any of these wrong, I'm sure I'm going to get absolute pelters on anybody who refers to our podcast or on social media. But anyway, I'll do the all competitions thing really because it's not that too bad. All competitions, he's won 17, drawn 11, lost 18. Premier League, obviously the bread and butter with that. He's had 39 games, won 13, drawn 9, lost 17. Now that is interesting. Your take on it was interesting when I said this to you. That's 48 points in 39 games. Now, and look, obviously it's let's take away your 3 points and one game, so it's a 38 game standard season.
Yeah.
That's 45 points in a season. I mean, you look at that from the man, that is fine given what's happened in the 2 seasons before that. I think that's what I mean. I think that's where it's got difficult for us. The way in which it's come, really. We had those extra 3 points now, you wouldn't be looking as over your shoulder as we are in the league. Because the other thing that gets me is Luton have got a game in hand. But the most important thing that was more relevant, I felt, less, which is another thing for us to talk about as well, is Frank Lampard was sacked, obviously, a year ago, or just over a year ago. Now, before I give this statistic, would you say he was only sacked because of the run of games? Because that's what generally happens with most managers getting sacked everywhere.
Yeah, but the run of games felt like it was from about September.
It was yeah. I mean, I think many people say it was the double defeat to Bournemouth where we should have got rid of him before the winter break. But just to throw this one in the mix, and I'll be really keen to get our listeners' reaction to this. So Lampard got sacked just before that Arsenal game. West Ham away, I think he got sacked after that. In that record, he had 1 win in 11. Okay? I think all competitions, 1 win in 11 that he was sacked from. Sean is currently on 1 win in 8. Now, if we lose the next 3, which nobody takes, you don't have to be a mathematician to understand what that is, he'll have that exact same record. 1 win in 11 games. Now, I'd love to get people's idea on this because, look, most people will get a knee-jerk reaction saying that, you're saying you want to get him sacked, Dave, you want to get him sacked. No, I'm just putting into context there or ask, and I'm asking you, obviously, how do you feel about that in comparison to what it was like with Lampard? Because, yes, the only difference I can see, without talking about what's on the pitch, is we seem slightly more comfortable, which sounds funny, in the relegation fight, i.e. we're outside of the bottom 3, than when we had Lampard. We were in it and looked a bit worse at that time. I'm just interested in what your take is on it.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question because when you first showed me that, I thought basically the difference was that Dyche came in and cleared up Lampard's mess and kept us up somehow last season, which felt like a miracle at the time. But then when I thought about it again, I thought, well, Lampard did exactly the same with Benitez's mess, which was pretty bad as well, and he kept us up. So they're kind of coming to the same sort of crossroads, Everton career-wise, aren't they? Like you say, if we lose these next 3, which is feasible, not being fatalistic or anything there, it is quite feasible that we lose away to Fulham, at home to Spurs, and away to City. I suppose the questions have got to be asked. I think the thing with Dyche is he's as normal a manager as we've had in ages, isn't he? So,
how do you define normal?
I just think he's in that sort of bracket of managers who've been around the Premier League for ages, and he did all right in the Premier League with Burnley. It wasn't anything spectacular, but he kept Burnley up for a lot of years. He got them into Europe, and he did quite well with them. He did all right. He kept them in the league. Now obviously we're going to look at that and be thinking, well, that's not enough. But at the minute, it is. When you look at the last 2 years and potentially this one as well, keeping us in the league is enough. I hate that argument where it's like, well, if you sack him, who'd you get? It's like, well, it's not on us to do that. That's where the club needs to have a plan in place, which they won't have. But I do think in this instance, if we did sack him, I don't think we'd get anyone as good.
Yeah.
I'm not building him up as a brilliant manager there. To be fair, when we were on that winning run, I thought the football we were playing was fine because we were winning. It's when you're not winning that you start picking holes and things, isn't it? And you start a bit shit that because the results haven't gone your way. So I think he will get more leeway, but I think he deserves it because I don't think Frank Lampard's a football manager at all. I just don't think he's ever going to make a capable football manager, not at any high level. Anyway, Sean Dyche has done that. He's got the background really. I think to have been bought more time, basically. But it is very.
I think you made a lot of points there inside about 2 minutes, and the thing about that in itself makes this. It makes it really difficult to come out with a complete scenario where you think, do you know what, that's probably the right decision here. I mean, you look at where we are now, and this is conventionally, again, we did it with Lampard. This is traditional Everton, as in you'd look at this and think, new manager. Maybe not the club, because they're absolutely gone to shit in the bonkers anyway, so anything could happen every day, as we see. But you look at fans here, you look on social, obviously, which we're on a lot in terms of our content and things, and it is around this time when you see a lot of people saying, we need a new manager. I seen that a couple of times the other night. People, well, not so much get rid of him, but people saying he's no good as a manager, which that's obviously leans towards people saying we need to change it. I think some of that saving grace that he gets is, like you've just said there, who'd you go and get? Ironically, he was the one that was top of the list with Lampard. Who do we go and get? Post Benitez, who'd you go and get? And the problem with that is you've got a situation there where you can't get the quality of manager you need that's going to be anything beyond 18 months and 2 years if Everton don't get to a mid-table, and then you can look at it and say, right, this fella we can progress with now. And that's what we're all desperate for, particularly, obviously, to stay up first and foremost. But when we go to the new stadium, that's what we're desperate to be, is that side where you're going somewhere, fresh slate, and everybody can sort of look at it and think, you know what, this is where Everton can kick on now. That looks a million miles away to all of us if we're honest about it. That's the really difficult thing to me, is when you get to a point now, it's impossible not to include the recent history we've had with managers that have been in there. Now, the other point that you made was about they've all inherited a team that's very, very similar to what we have now, because you haven't signed that many players. You only had a couple like Onana. You can't really look at much others. Tarkovsky's been brilliant. Best free transfer we ever had, perhaps. Mikalenko's been outstanding as well.
Yeah.
I think you can already write him as my player of the season, by the way. There was absolutely nothing wrong with that fella. But I tell you what, you're looking at that and you think there aren't many others you'd look at and think. And I know Peter Mack would be saying McNeil and singing about him because I have no idea why anymore. But again, he's not fit, so you can't really give him too much criticism. But that goes along with into, and this is where it's like there's so many different facets to how you feel about how negative Everton are at the moment is, well, the squad's still the same because we spent the money like shite, and then we've gone into the financial difficulty where we can't actually spend any money. So that is where sympathy goes to Dyche. It goes through whoever's in there, really. That should be always at the top of the list to say, we're playing as bad as we are, simply because he's inherited a team that has been crap for a long, long time. That can't be as simple as just the real excuse, because of the way in which you've said there how we played on Saturday. I'd implore anybody to say there's no other manager that could get the way we did on Saturday and be that poor and be in that style. The style he's had, look, and you'd say it to any club. If you're looking to pay your well-earned money to go to a Premier League match and watch the best football you can see, more than likely we're in the bottom 2 or 3 if you want to go and watch really good football, obviously with City at the top and then them over the road second and all that sort of thing. That doesn't matter to us. Like you rightly said, those 4 wins doesn't matter how we play to get the results. It quickly though becomes part of the criticism of Dyche that we play shit, because then you're immediately going, well, we'd be much better if you started playing better football. So that's where I do have sympathy with him, because it feels impossible for us to be able to do that, given the squads we have, given the players we're able to put in position that he wants. But again, the other side of that with him is, you're a Premier League manager, mate. You've got to come up with something much different than that, even though you've got a really team of shite to work with and virtually no subs. You're renowned for doing that.
Yeah.
With Ben. Where's this for Everton? And that's where I have the most problems with him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. In the position he's in, and it probably is a bit wrong for people to talk about they want to see good football with Everton, because we've not seen it in a long time. And when you're 17th in the league with a points deduction or not, we're not going to get good football because we haven't got, our players aren't that good.
You're asked about it though. I mean,
well, exactly, that's what I mean. I'm not.
Just go back quickly to what I said, Les, about that fella I was speaking to there. We drew that 1-1 with Brighton at home, and they scored in the last minute. About half an hour, we were 1-0 up, and he's saying to me, "I'm not coming back to watch this shite." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I'm not coming back to watch Everton play like this. It's not what I pay me money for." And I was like, mate, look at the scoreline. We're winning 1-0. I don't care if we're crawling on the floor. I don't care if everybody's on each other. People have someone on the shoulder. I don't care how we play. It's the results, unfortunately. You start moaning that when you're mid-table or fighting for a place. But I just didn't get his mentality with that. But I suppose when you were doing that for long enough, which is again being in excess of 2 or 3 years, you're thinking, At least give me something when I'm paying 40, 50 quid to go in there and it's this sort of weather. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think, as I said before, it just all comes into focus when you're not winning or you're not getting any results. Yeah. So it's like, you can, if we win a game, we all walk out the ground happy. If it had gone the other way against Luton and we'd have scored that last minute corner, we'd have all walked out happy there. We'd have walked out and been like, God, that was crap, wasn't it? But we won. So we'd be happy. The real sort of like criticisms come in when you're playing and you're not playing well and you get beat because there's nothing to cling on to then. And I think the thing when you're in this position, and when you're in this position in the table, the only thing a manager can do is find a way to win football matches, and he's not done that for a while now. So he's not done that since the start of December consistently. Yeah. Is that one win we've had? Palace
for the 1 win, yeah. And then obviously, we go back to 5 weeks ago was when we won the 4 in a row. That was the last.
In that Palace game, if ever there was a game that was going to finish 0-0 and go to penalties, it was that. It was just that one bit from Gomez that won it for us. So we've not been playing well in a long time, and he needs to find a way to get winning again. Doesn't matter if it's horrible and it is hoofing the ball up. But if you're going to hoof the ball upfield, you've got to make sure those two lads who are on the end of it know what each other are doing and are working together. And they've not done that. And if they
go back in full circle with that, Les, is that where the core eight people it's him or it's getting relegated? That might well be the thing, devil's advocate, where people are thinking if he's there, that gives us a hell of a lot of higher percentage of getting goals and winning games.
Well, sadly it does, doesn't it? But I find it hard to believe.
Sorry to interrupt you, mate, but that's when it continues on to, well, if you haven't got him, where's Dyche coming up with a decision he can make? Do you know what I mean? It just kicks further and further down the lane, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he's getting very well paid for the job he's doing.
Yeah.
So you've got to find other ways of doing it. If this player's going to be out for this amount of time, you've got to find a way to cope without him. And that on Saturday really wasn't a way to cope without him. Because honestly, if you play like that in the next 3 games, we'll get absolutely malleted.
If that's the case, going back to my stats, just if you say certain things, the answer, and you'll get people slating you. Which either way you go, really.
Yeah.
You're going to lose their 3. You start looking at his job.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because instinctively, I'm thinking no. I don't think we should be thinking about sacking him. But if you look at the facts, it's like, well, yeah, because it isn't good enough. And we're going to be in a relegation battle again. Whether it's down to the 10 points or not, that's where we are. So we've got to get out of it. can he do it? Is he the man to do it? Now, as you say, you look at his stats, and overall, if you're gonna give him a grading for the last 12 months, probably somewhere around B for me. If you
Yeah,
factor over that course of the season, he's got what, 45 points over the course of a full season, basically. He's kept us up, and he would have us mid-table now. You can't argue with that, can you? From where we were. But if you look at the fact that it's across 2 seasons and we're in the second one now, and we're not quite plummeting, but we're sinking, you've got to start like asking questions of him, really, because I think this is one thing that's like, whenever you listen to any pods about this, about Everton, he's very rarely questioned.
yeah,
His position and his performance and how the team's playing is very rarely questioned. So at the weekend, it was all about how bad the players were, or a lot of it was about how bad the players were. But he put them in that system. He's seen that system against Luton before and it didn't work. That's on him for me. So I think questions need to be asked because, no manager, I don't care how good the manager is, should be beyond criticism. And he certainly isn't. So I think it is, while I'm not saying it's time we need to start thinking, should we get rid? I don't think it's time to get rid, but it's definitely time to start questioning, what's he doing? How's he going to get us out of this?
yeah,
Because we don't know when the Decore's back. And even if he comes back, he could get injured again. Could be in for a week, out for 6. What's he going to do to get us out of trouble? And that's the thing for me. Overall, I think over the last 12 months, it's been mainly positive. He's done what he's had to. But it's this next 4 months now that are really going to define him and us.
It's quite the dilemma, isn't it, really? Because you start thinking, well, where does the book stop? I think I'd go as far as saying, I'm not speaking for people here, but I'd say in excess of maybe 80-90% of our fans are looking on the pitch and just seeing it visually why we're so poor because of the players we've got. But how often do you do that? How often do you think, well, that might be that's the Everton average. That's why we're doing the way we are, is because the squad we've got is crap. He's inherited the job where he's known that. He's inherited the job that he's been used to with Burnley. We're not going to do with the next few minutes to go, but if you look at the side that he had with Burnley, would you look at that and compare it to what Everton have these days and think, well, he did the reason why you go and get him as manager is for the job he's done at Burnley, and then that makes sense. But then you think, well, if he was doing it with the worst side at Burnley, what's gone wrong with him not being able to do that with Everton? And look, we're not talking about top 40. We're talking about getting the amount of points you need to stay in the league. That's why he's been appointed as our manager. So the question, I think you're right. I think many listen to this. I mean, I can't even mention the word sack. But you're right about the questions. And I'd go a little bit further and say, given Saturday as well, questions start now. He, and like I said to you, with the media as well, I think he's quite clever in terms of just, there you go, there's your answer. I'm not going to tell you my opinion. I'm not going to tell you how I feel. I'm just going to tell you in general what you'd get from most managers who don't want to complain or moan or talk VAR and all that. He's very, very good at going straight back. That gives him a lot of leeway in many ways, I think, for many people. But the way in which he's doing this sort of thing, people won't stand for it for a very, very long time. I think you go back to say what you'd rate him. I was trying to think of analogies to talk about this, and the one that it came to was if he's a half-decent teacher, but the kids he's trying to teach are just crap. That's the sort of feeling that I get with him. So when you mentioned around B, Matt Jones, who we were talking to before, he said B-. He'd give him. It's hard to say pass with a C. I'm going to say a C. He just keeps his head above water. And going back to that, Les, so my final question towards you is it possible to string the two apart and say the team shit, that's why, or Dyche's manager has to have a part of this? Obviously, we've both said it's smack in the middle.
Yeah.
But then which one do you lean towards and think that's the problem? We can go and get, and again, that goes back to the age-old question, who'd you get?
Yeah. I'd say for me, ultimately, the team is the problem. The recruitment is the problem. I think you give Dyche some better options in the key midfield positions. I think the defence is all right. Give him a bit of better option centre mid. Give him a better option up front. And I'm not talking like a well-beaten option here. I'm just talking one that can maybe score and look passable as a centre forward at the minute.
That's been a long time. Sorry to forgive me, but that's been an age-old job, age-old issue for us. That having an additional second striker. We never ever. When's the last time Everton have played two up front? Years ago.
Yeah.
Years ago.
Yeah.
I've never really understood why we wouldn't get the option to do that, a good option to do that. But that's where I perhaps have a little bit of sympathy with him because, if he's the one who said, I really badly want Beto, then I think he goes a little bit down from my eyes to see. I think he goes a little bit further down towards, I don't know, DNF, DEF.
Well, there's another past in that, isn't there? Recruitment and what's Kevin Thelwell doing?
Well, that's it. I mean, again,
the whole of the pod in that in itself.
Yeah, I know, but there's no way. Then, Chrisley, there's no way Sean Dyche doesn't agree. There's no way. The way it's meant to be when it hasn't is Thelwell goes up to him and says, "What do you think of this fella?" And he goes, "No, he's shit. I've watched him. He can't touch the ball down." And when he tries to run with it, he tackles himself. He's not going to. That's brutally harsh, by the way. He's not going to sign that off, is he?
Yeah,
but if he has, that's when you're in more trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just depressing to find ourselves in this position again, isn't it? It's like, are we just doomed to this forever now? Is that it?
So it's over well over 100 games since we felt relatively comfortable in the season where you're not even going to think about relegation. Where did we finish before the Palace season, the Palace year when we stayed up? What was the season before that?
Ancelotti money.
I mean, look at the fall from there. I know. Again, people will say, but it's Ancelotti, but he's still a football manager. And for us to fall that far from then, which is 3 years ago, fall from that to where we are now, largely the same sort of squad, that is really, really worrying, isn't it? That's a depressing take on all things, isn't it?
It is. But then, do you know what? This brings us back into the whole FFP and P&L stuff, whereby we've just had to flog players off, not replace them. Oh, it all feeds into that.
You're saying that, Les. Again, I think we've been a lot of people who say, that sort of, you said something different before, but now you're saying this. That goes to the point where you're really, really lucky to stay in the Premier League. What you just said there, do you know what I mean?
It does, and this is the confusing thing about it all. It's so hard to know what to think because the circumstances that have led us to this position are so far reaching and wide ranging. Even going down from, like you say, going from Ancelotti to Benitez, having an absolute crackpot chairman who thought that was a good idea.
And Lampard.
Yeah, there's so much that have fed into it. We should be looking at this and thinking, you know what, we're doing all right here.
Yeah.
We're not in the bottom three, so
we're not bottom.
I know exactly. It's Oh, right. We'll leave it there before we sort of fall further down into any more of a rabbit hole with that.
People might need a drink before they listen to this one, mightn't they?
Yeah, I think we should tell people have a sit down before you listen to it.
Yeah.
No, that's been really interesting though, Dave. It's there's a lot to think about, isn't there? I thought it'd be quite simple to just
mate, if you're travelling, which I know a lot of people listen to us when they are travelling. Warren, who does a lot with us, by the way, he lives in Bournemouth. He was driving back down on Sunday morning after the game the previous day, and he was like, "Oh, I love listening to the pods." And I was like, "Yeah, just stay away from everything and put the mailbag, please, because a lot of it is it's a hard listen. I put it as a 15 if it was a film."
Yeah.
But again, I think that's why we have so many people listening to us. All we have to say as well, just we finished, Les. The voting was over for the Sports Pod Awards. We'll find out in a couple of days whether we've won anything or taken anything, that sort of gold, silver, bronze. But just want to thank everyone because yesterday we had hundreds and hundreds of people saying they'd done it, we deserved it and all that. So as usual, got to thank everyone who listened to us.
Yeah, as ever, thanks for everyone's support, and thanks for everyone's support on YouTube as well. There's a nice little community built up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good to see the most retweets and stuff, people saying, we voted for it.
Yeah.
Really do appreciate it, and feedback like that makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's nice to know that. I don't know. Do you know it works? And people say, "Oh, I love listening to the Blue Room because." I get the idea that I'm not mad and I'm listening to what people think the same as me as well. It's the other way around as well. When we hear that it's decent and a lot of people listen to us, are like, I'm thankful there's someone who thinks like we do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. We're not just
screaming into the void. Football club, aren't we?
Right, cheers for that, Dave. As ever, let us know what you think on Twitter at the Blue Room EFC or in the comments. Hopefully by this time next week, we'll be in a much nicer position than we are this time this week. We'll be two games better off or worse off. Who knows?
This time in 36 hours, mate. Is it 36? Yeah, 36 hours, mate. Let's hope we've gone in there, got at least a point down at Fulham, because that'd feel the world to me. If we went and at least didn't lose, I'd be delighted with that by the time we get to the weekly on Wednesday.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So coming up this week, then we've got match preview, Fulham, post-match Fulham, the weekly, subs weekly, mailbag, preview for Spurs, post-match Spurs. Now we Blue Monday again, and we're back here, and we're in February.
Yeah.
Right. Cheers, Dave.
See if we're any more sane when we come back this time next week, mate.
Oh, I have no doubt that we won't be. Thanks to everyone for listening. We'll catch up with you in the week. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. See you later.